Which player is projected to have the best WAR this season for the Cardinals? We've got your answer on today's episode of Locked On Cardinals.
You are Locked On Cardinals, your daily St. Louis Cardinals podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, Cardinals fans. I'm JD Haffern, and I am your host for Locked On Cardinals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. Give me a follow on X at JD Sports Radio. You can also follow the podcast at LO_Cardinals. We're on YouTube, of course. Please like, subscribe, and comment there, and hit the notification button so you know when the new episodes are posted. And also available now on TikTok at Locked On Cardinals, all one word. The Instagram also in the works, so that's coming here real soon. This is a show serving Cardinal Nation and giving the best fans of baseball all of the info about the birds on the bat. So stop me if you've heard this one before, guys. For the first time in a long time, there's not a lot of faith in what's going on with the St. Louis Cardinals in 2025, at least not nationally. I believe local media still thinks the team can put a better product on the field than the team is getting credit for. Some are more skeptical than others, and that's fine. There's reason to believe that the Cardinals are going to take a step back this year. Everydayers know that I'm a more positive guy. I like to see things through, the Cardinals' red lenses, as you might have heard before. But I'm leaning that way as well, that I just think this team can be better than what people are giving them credit for. Do I think it's a World Series caliber contending team? No, that's not what I'm saying. But I can also see this roster being a decent one, and something that could actually contend for certainly a wild card spot. And who knows what happens in the division? You just never know what's going to go down. But I feel like there's a better chance for positive things to happen than to have it just blow up in their faces. But I can see how it could happen, that things would go sour real quick. Obviously, some things are going to have to go their way if they're going to be a winning ball club in 2025. Veterans got to stay healthy. Younger players who are going to get more opportunities this year, they've just got to be better. But you can say that about most teams in the league. I mean, that's a pretty easy formula that everybody's got to follow, right? If your best players aren't your best players, normally things aren't going to work out. You're not going to be a very good team. Last year, the Cardinals' best players on offense were supposed to be Paul Goldschmidt, Nolan Arenado, Nolan Gorman, Jordan Walker, Wilson Contreras. And four of those guys were not good at all compared to what they had done in the past or what they were expected to do last season. So the offense struggled. Contreras playing half the season didn't help matters. He was good when he was out there, but he was only out there for half the season. Now, there are teams out there that have enough depth, have enough resources to overcome such a thing. Guys like the Dodgers, the Phillies, the Mets, the Yankees, the big players in the league with the bloated payrolls. Those are the guys that, can survive a couple of guys not quite living up to expectations, where most of the team cannot do that. They just can't stay afloat like some of those other teams can do. And the Cardinals are no different this year. Payroll's going down. They're putting the burden on becoming a better team this year on people in their organization, younger guys. So who are the projected best players on this roster? People that actually they got to be good, or this team's going to be in trouble in 2025. Well, Thomas Harrigan at MLB.com used the projections from FanGraphs depth charts, which is a combination of the Steamer and Zips projection systems, with expected playing time allocated by the FanGraphs staff based on wins above replacement. That's what WAR stands for those of you who are unfamiliar. Here is the top projected player, or in the Cardinals case, it's players. The Cardinals have two with a projected WAR of 3.5, and that is Sonny Gray and Mason Wynn. Now, here's what Harrigan says about those two guys. The Cardinals opening day starting pitcher, presumptive opening day starting pitcher, Sonny Gray, and their talented young shortstop are tied for the team's projected WAR lead entering 2025. Gray signed a 3-year, $75 million deal with the Cards after the 2023 campaign and was worth 3.8 WAR his first season with the club, posting a 3.84 ERA with 203 strikeouts and 39 walks over 166 and a third innings. When, meanwhile, produced a 3.6 WAR as a rookie in 2024, holding his own with the bat while providing superb defense and solid base running. And I'm already going to say that there is a mistake in that article because I'm reading straight from it, and that was not Sonny Gray's WAR last year. I will catch that right now. It was not 3.8. You're going to learn a little bit later what it actually was, but it was not 3.8. It wasn't 3.8 at all. In fact, Wins actually was higher than this as well. So I don't know where he's getting those particular stats from. That's not what we have anywhere else on the interweb here. The next question you might have, though, is how good is a 3.5 WAR? You know, is that pretty good for people unfamiliar with WAR? It's not great. It's not, trash by any means, but for comparison, last year's WAR leader on ESPN was Aaron Judge at 10.8, followed by Bobby Witt at 9.4, Shohei Ohtani at 9.2, Gunnar Henderson at 9.1, Jared Duran for the Red Sox, 8.7. Pitching-wise, you had the Tigers' Tarek Skubal, who, was incredible with the Tigers last year, and Hunter Green from the Cincinnati Reds side for a league lead for pitchers in WAR at 6.3, followed by the Braves' Chris Sale, who won the NL Cy Young Award at 6.2. The Phillies' Zach Wheeler was next at 6.1. NL Rookie of the Year, Paul Skeens, came in 5th at 5.9. And then coming in at number 6, and this is going to likely open up some eyes, the Cardinals' Eric Fetty, 5.6. Now, again, I'm going through ESPN there, so the WAR projections that Harrigan might be talking about, maybe that's something differently with FanGraphs, and maybe that's why it's off a little bit, but compared to what the numbers I have that are listed here, according to like Baseball Reference and stuff. So there's probably just a little differences between the two, which would make a little bit of sense. But 3.5 isn't awful for Sonny Gray and Mason Wynn in 2025. Now, let's take those numbers. And it gave me an idea to kind of like, well, if that's what the projected stuff at FanGraphs is, what are those projections that they got for the Cardinals this year compared to what the guys finished with last year? So we're going to go into those numbers coming up next on Locked On Cardinals. In sports, having a winning strategy is everything. It's how the best teams make it to the Super Bowl or the World Series, the Stanley Cup, NBA Finals, and the Olympics. The same goes for life. Having a strategy like life insurance from SelectQuote can protect your financial legacy and keep your family's future secure. SelectQuote makes it easy to find the perfect life insurance policy. As one of America's leading insurance brokers with nearly 40 years of experience, they've helped over 2 million customers find $700 billion in coverage since 1985. So what sets SelectQuote apart in their ability to do all of this? Well, it's the personal touch. That's what they give you. Unlike other brokers that are going to offer you the one-size-fits-all policies, their licensed agents actually tailor coverage to fit your unique needs. Now, if you're in good health, you might even qualify for same-day coverage of up to $5 million with no medical exam required, and it's more affordable than you think. You can get up to $1 million in coverage for as little as $20 a month. So get the right life insurance for you for less and do it with SelectQuote.com/LockedOn. Go to SelectQuote.com/LockedOn today to get started. That's SelectQuote.com/LockedOn. SelectQuote, they shop, you save. Thank you again for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen every day. You can leave your comments on YouTube as well as on Twitter, X, anytime you want. Your feedback is always welcome and encouraged. We're looking at what the players did last year and comparing them. We're talking about their WAR, wins above replacement. So what was the WAR that the Cardinals finished with, like each player? We're going to go through the starters. What did they finish at last year compared to what these projections are going to be this year for FanGraphs? So we're going to start with Mason Wynn, who finished last year. And this according to so I used Baseball Reference, and then I got the FanGraphs projection. So if there's some differences there in how they calculate them, then that's why some of these numbers might be a little bit different, because that just kind of struck me that things were a little off compared to what Baseball Reference had there. But anyway, last year, Mason Wynn finished with a WAR of 4.9 on Baseball Reference, which led the team. In this article, it said he was at what? 3 point, what'd they say? 3 point, going back here. Hold on. We're getting it all set up here. Don't worry. 3.6 is what they're saying here. So I don't know. I don't know why the differences are what they are. I apologize for that. But Baseball Reference had him at 4.9, which led the team. They have him at 3.5. So it's a little bit of a dip for Mason Wynn, according to FanGraphs. Nolan Arenado is next. He's projected at 3.2. Last year, he was at 2.5. So that's a little bit of a bump. Number 3 surprised me a little bit, because I figured it would be Wilson Contreras, just because he seems like the best hitter on the team compared to what he's done over his career. And it's not. They're actually going to give the nod to Lars Nootbaar. Nootbaar projected at 2.8 last year, was only at 1.5. Obviously, we know why Newt could be, somebody who has a better WAR if he stays healthy, right? You got to keep him on the field. Brendan Donovan also at 2.8 last year. He was at 2.6, so relatively the same. Next up, still not Wilson Contreras, by the way. It's the Cardinals' expected new starting catcher, Ivan Herrera, at 2.4, who was a 1.7 last season. Contreras finally comes in next as a projected WAR of 2.2. Last year, he had a WAR of 3.0. Again, out half the season. So who knows if it would have gone up, could have gone down. We don't know. The dip there is probably because he's moving to first base, someplace that he has never really played before, outside of a few innings here and there. So last year's first baseman, Paul Goldschmidt, by the way, finished at 1.3, in case you were wondering. So just looking at the position of first base, Contreras at 2.2. That would be a step up from Paul Goldschmidt last year. At number 7, we have Alec Burleson at 1.5. He was a 1.2 last year. Then it's Nolan Gorman at 1.3. He was at 0.3 last year. Jordan Walker is at 1.2. He was a minus 0.9 last season. So the only guys they actually have being worse, according to these projections, than last year is they got Mason Wynn coming down a little bit and Wilson Contreras coming down a little bit. So everyone else they actually have going up some. On the pitching side of things, Sonny Gray is at the top of their projections with that 3.5. And like I said, when you go to Baseball Reference, it's got Sonny Gray last year at a 1.8 WAR. So I don't know what the difference is between what they had last year to what this one is on Baseball Reference. Eric Fetty, who we mentioned earlier, had that massive 5.6 WAR, projected to come crashing back to earth with a 1.9 while he was with the Cardinals last year, because, he did a lot of that good stuff in the first half of the season with the Chicago White Sox before he got traded. But when he did come to the Cardinals, his WAR was at 0.9. In case you were wondering, but 5.6 to 1.9 is quite the tumble. They're not expecting nearly as good of things out of Eric Fetty as he provided last year, which is a kind of a bummer because, Fetty is one of those like wild card things going on here. I posted a question on X, other than Sonny Gray, which veteran Cardinals pitcher do you trust the most? And the overwhelming vote, 76.3, goes to Eric Fetty, followed by Miles Michaelis and Steven Matz. Had a lot of people just saying, where's, D? None. I understand that if you're a little down on things. I get that completely. But, if Fetty can be a lot like he was with the White Sox last year, that's going to be quite the boost. It's going to be quite the boost. And you saw glimpses of it when he came to the Cardinals last year after the trade, after the change. Had a couple of games where it was kind of like, and then he looked a little bit more comfortable, and we saw him pitch a couple of good games. Next up, as far as the starting pitchers go, Andre Palante is at 1.6. Last year, he was at 1.6 as well. Miles Michaelis, they got at 1.6. Last year, he was actually in the negative at negative 0.2 WAR. Next is your closer, Ryan Helsley, projected at 1.5. He actually led the Cardinals pitchers in WAR, according to Baseball Reference last year, at 3.0. Steven Matz comes in next at 1.2. He was also a negative last year at 0.2. As far as the starting rotation goes in the back end here, they're not really putting a lot of stock in Michael McGreevy projecting him at 0.1. He was a 0.9 last year. We know that was just 4 appearances, though, so very, very small sample size. The guy that they think is going to get more action in the starting rotation this year is reigning minor league pitcher of the year, Quinn Matthews, who they project to have a WAR of 1.0. Everyone else on the staff, in the bullpen, everybody else is under 1. So, again, these are just projections. Lots of things can obviously change over the course of not only the season, but just here in spring training as the team gets revved up for their first spring games this weekend when they face the Marlins on Saturday. So we're only a couple of days away from some action between the Cardinals and the Miami Marlins. So spring training week 2 moving along quite quickly. Coming up in our next segment, we're going to talk about one of the guys that we've constantly brought up this offseason that is going to need to improve dramatically for this team to succeed in 2025. And he used a journal to actually keep himself in a good spot mentally last year. You'll find out who that is next. Coming up on Locked On Cardinals. Thank you again for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen. Today, for your second listen, you can find Locked On MLB. Our baseball guru, Sully, brings you a daily blend of humor and baseball, keeping you updated on all the teams during spring training. You can find Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Now, to say that last year was a step back for Nolan Gorman, it's an understatement, right? When he got called up in 2022, there was a lot of hope that this was going to be one of the big sluggers for the Cardinals in the near future. And hopefully, over like the next decade, he popped 14 home runs and 283 official at-bats. Then in 2023, he jumps to 27 dingers and 406 at-bats. Yes, the strikeouts were always there. They were still there. He struck out 32.9% of the time in his first call-up. Last year, or in 2023, he was at 31.9% in the second year. But as we've said time and time again, you can kind of make an exception, even though it drives me nuts. You can kind of make the exception for all these whiffs if the power and production comes along with it. As long as you're doing damage in those other at-bats that you're not striking out, you kind of live with the bad, right? You'll take the good, you'll live with the bad, but 2024, things just didn't work out at all. Gorman still smacked 19 home runs last year. It's not like it was just something to sneeze at with 19 dingers and 402 official at-bats. Not horrible, but down from the rate that he was going in 2023. So he was, taking a step back in that perspective. And then the strikeout percentage, though, that was getting scary. It jumped up to 37.9%. last year. The OPS, it plummets from 116 to 85. No longer were you getting the payoff for all the strikeouts. Instead, you were just getting the strikeouts. You weren't getting much else. Between his last home run that he hit, which happened on July 22nd in the major leagues, before he got demoted to Memphis for the rest of the season, Gorman was in a tailspin, going 8 for 44. That's a 182 batting average, no home runs, no RBIs, 1 run scored, in 16 strikeouts and only 2 walks. So he's not getting on base at all. He's not hitting the ball over the wall. He's not doing much at all for you. And according to this new article from John Denton at MLB.com, one of the ways that Gorman was able to cope with the disappointment of the season was writing in a journal. According to this article, which I have linked in the description for you to read in full, he says little soothed Gorman's tortured thoughts during his rocky 2024 season, but journaling kept him from bottling up his emotions and gave him time to vent. On his habit of journaling, Gorman told Denton, I'll either do it at the field or right when I get home, but for me, it's a trigger to know that once that notebook is closed and I'm done writing everything down and it's over, knowing that whatever happened today, good or bad, is over helps. It's about realizing then that the next day is more important. And in a game of like baseball, where you play almost every day, moving on from a bad play, a bad at-bat, or just a bad game overall, it's extremely crucial to you being able to succeed over the entire season. Quick story real quick. I had a game back in high school, and we were one of the top teams in Missouri, in the state that year. And early in the season, we had a game where I made 3 errors at shortstop in 1 inning. And granted, I wasn't Ozzie Smith playing shortstop by any means, but I was a decent glove. I wasn't some scrub out there. And we were playing on a field that was, I remember this, it was all dirt, but the ball played like it was coming off of AstroTurf. Okay. I don't know if it was just because it wasn't very dusty. I don't know what it was, but it was a very hard infield, very hard surface. And the ball would really pick up speed quicker. The bounces were like bigger and faster. And, I had trouble in warmups with it because it wasn't something that, I was used to. And you know how it is. And, when you're playing in high school games, like you get a couple of ground balls and it's over. Like, it's not like you get this whole hour to warm up like you would in the major leagues. And lo and behold, I have this inning from hell. Early on in the game, and I was just so mad at myself that I carried those plays over to what I had to do in my next at bat. And of course, I had a crappy at bat. And it wasn't until my summer league coach comes walking over and he talks to me and he simmers me down, calms me down, and he was able to get my head right, where it was just like, look, it's over. You got to move on. This is, you're a big part of what's going to happen in this game, and they're not going to win it without you. We need you to get, come on. And I was able to go on and have a couple of key hits later in the game and make a few plays in the field. And we came back and we ended up winning the game. But it just reminded me of how important that is, where turning the page quickly, how huge it can be in the game of baseball, because, the next ball could be hit right at you. Next at bat could be the next inning. You've got a game tomorrow. And, it makes me feel good to hear that Nolan Gorman is figuring out a way to help him get past those situations where, if he had a tough day at the field, but is able to just move on and focus on tackling the next day instead. It makes me think that his mind is in a good spot to be a successful Major League Baseball player. And I mean, good for him. The mental side of this game, it's just so important. And I brought it up before with Gorman that, watching him last year, and when he gets in these ruts, the body language, you could just see it on his face and in his body language that, he looked defeated, he looked lost, and he looked like he didn't have any more confidence at the plate anymore. And that's a tough spot to be in. And we're talking about a young player too. This is not, a 28, 29-year-old veteran who's been around and has learned the ropes. This is still a young man who's, his whole life, he's been probably the best player on his team, no matter where he went. And finally is getting a taste of what it's like to struggle. Same thing can be said about Jordan Walker. Has been the best player on every team he's ever played on, no matter where he went. And finally not succeeding like he's used to, it's a tough pill to swallow for these young guys. So it was good to hear in this article that instead of taking the demotion to Memphis as a form of punishment and being all upset at himself about it, and maybe even making things worse on himself, Gorman used it as a chance to study his swing. He told Denton that getting sent down might have been the best thing for him. He said, what I did in Memphis was actually pretty good. I know the regular stat line wasn't very good, but I was consistently on the barrel. There was a consistent period where I felt like I was back on my game. And in the 23 games where he was down in Memphis last year, he swatted 7 home runs, hit 4 doubles for Memphis, batting average at 203. But I think we've all learned by this point that batting average isn't everything in this game anymore. I know it's a nice thing to have, but like you said, if he's barreling up things and they're hitting it right at people, your batting average is going to go down. But when you go back and look at things, you're like, I got a good swing there. I put the ball hit the barrel. I'm doing things well. They're just not finding the holes yet, unless he's clearly hitting it over the wall where he hits 7 home runs. We know that he's been working with new hitting coach Brant Brown a lot this offseason. He talks about it a little bit in this article where it says that they've been working together almost daily because both of them live out in Arizona. So it's not like Gorman is just, trying to get by here. He's certainly doing the things necessary to improve his game for this year so that he can be a bigger impact on this offense and on this club in 2025. And yeah, I know I've been tooting the Nolan Gorman horn since he got called up. So of course I will continue to back him and die on this hill. that says Gorman and Walker should and will be very good Major League Baseball players for the St. Louis Cardinals, and they're going to be two of the biggest keys for this team this coming season. If Gorman becomes that Max Muncy guy that I keep referring to, that I think he can be, and Walker can get back to being the guy that he was at the end of his first year when he hit 304 with 4 home runs and 12 RBIs over his final 27 games. And again, last year, getting everyday playing time at the major league level, hit 253, 5 home runs and 16 RBIs in his final 25 games. I mean, you get that from Walker, and you get the Nolan Gorman that I think he can be. Plus, you get a better Nolan Arenado. I'm not saying, MVP caliber guy that we saw a couple years ago, but a better Nolan Arenado at the plate this year. A healthy Wilson Contreras. Mason Wen continues to continue his progression and become better, not regress in year 2. You get the bat of Ivan Herrera, who I saw some video earlier, hitting the ball very hard in spring. You get his bat, which seems like it's going to be pretty darn good at the major league level. This offense should be better than it was last year, and that's where a lot of the problems were. We know the bullpen was very good last year. We know the starting rotation did their jobs for the most part. It was the offense that struggled all year long. And you're hoping that your pitching staff remains the same. It could still be quite, as good as they were. And the offense can get back to the level that we think they can get to in 2025. And to me, that equals more wins. And, should put to rest some of the Cardinals suck now and they're not going to be any good this year. But again, a lot of this stuff has to happen for them to succeed. News and notes from around the league real quick. The Cubs have reportedly signed free agent Justin Turner to a 1-year deal worth $6 million, a chance to earn another $2.5 million in incentives. Justin Turner now 40 years old, but he still had a decent season last year. 259, 11 home runs and 55 RBIs between the Blue Jays and the Mariners. A good part-time guy to have on your bench and to be able to put in those starting lineup here and there. Been a solid hitter for a long time. So not a bad signing for the Cubs and what they've got on their roster. Vladimir Guerrero Jr., this was big news. The Blue Jays and Guerrero Jr. unable to come to an agreement on an extension, and according to reports, does not plan to negotiate with the team during the season, which means he's going to be testing free agency. That could get expensive and could be kind of exciting. Do the Dodgers need another first baseman? What's the word on Freeman? They still love him. I know he, coming off surgery last year, but Vladimir Guerrero Jr., obviously a huge name to keep an eye on. If things go south this year for the Blue Jays, he's never said anything about not wanting to be in Toronto. And in fact, most of the stuff I read is that's where he wants to be. He wants to end his career there, but things change, and trade deadline this year. What if Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is available? That could be fun. Former Cardinal Adam Ottavino has signed a minor league contract with the Red Sox. 39 years old now. Will earn $2 million salary if he makes the roster. If he doesn't make the 40-man out of camp, he'll have the freedom to opt out of his contract and return to free agency. Dude's been I shouldn't say stud, but a very good relief pitcher over the years, specifically against right-handed hitters. He's a guy that I've always wanted to see him come back into a Cardinals uniform. 2-2, 4.34 ERA last year for the Mets. If this Nick Anderson thing doesn't work out and they don't find a capable guy to fill that Andrew Kittredge role from, in the bullpen as a right-handed pitcher, and Ottavino doesn't make the Red Sox roster, obviously he's not going to cost very much. So I don't know. Keep him on the speed dial. The Diamondbacks also come to an agreement on a 4-year, $45 million extension with shortstop Geraldo Perdomo. Not much of a hitter, but an excellent defender. 10 defensive runs saved last year. Mason Wen, by the way, led all shortstops with 14 defensive runs saved, for those of you keeping track at home. All right, thanks for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen every day. If you haven't already, please give us a follow on X at @LO_Cardinals and the JD Sports Radio, TikTok at Locked On Cardinals. Like, subscribe on YouTube, help our channel and our love for the Cardinals grow. You guys are the best fans in baseball for a reason, and I will see you next time on Locked On Cardinals.